Hello and welcome to the British Dapper, and today we're talking about shirts, old, bold and worn out. So today's video is the final video for the British Dapper, and the subject is about shirts, old, bold and worn out. And with that, we're talking about a subject where we're looking at shirts and how they wear over time and what you can do to create a little bit of longevity in them and keep their luster, if you like. And today's story is really from one of my Patreons who has illustrated something that occurred to him when he went to his wardrobe to find a shirt. And the story is quite simply, he went to his wardrobe to pick out a white shirt for an evening event to go with his dinner suit, and he found to his horror that the collar had turned or tinted yellow. And this was quite a shock to him because he'd put it in the wardrobe some time before, having washed and ironed it. And so it was a little bit of an awkward situation. And so he determined to actually clean the shirt and prepare it ready for use in the future. And this really is his journey through experimentation and creativity to a degree to actually end up with a shirt that was usable again. And there are some other video content elements in this where we talk about revitalizing a shirt and also not only the shirt but also the skills that go with that as well. So the first thing that I want to confirm is that he had kept it in the wardrobe, washed and ironed with a polyurethane dust cover to protect it. The shirt is quite an old one, and he'd washed it thoroughly and prepared it ready for wear. So the first thing he did, determined to return it to its former glory and bright white colour, is he removed the stays from the shirt. He considered the washing instructions in the label to make sure he was doing everything correct, and also to make sure he was going to do it right this time in preparation for getting that shirt back to its former glory. So he determined that on sort of investigation that most normal wash powders don't really accommodate whites per se, so he employed the use of something that was specific for whites. And in this case he used Vanish, which is a UK brand, Vanish Oxy Action Crystal White, which is in a tub about so big, and as you can see here, it's pretty recognisable regardless of what country you're in. It might not necessarily go by that name or even that brand, but the principle's the same. It's an additive to return whites to their former glory. And so he, having read the instructions in his shirt, added warm water, made the solution in the bowl and added the shirt to the bowl. And to keep it submerged, he put a plate on top of the shirt to keep it below the surface of the solution. Now, he left it for several hours, but I would say that you quite comfortably could leave a shirt in that solution overnight until in the morning. And so when he did remove the shirt, he found it returned it to its former white luster, and gave it a rinse and put it in his normal wash and gave it a full wash, and the shirt was fantastic, back to its former glory and ready for wear without any consequence at all. Now, this is not an uncommon thing, because as shirts wear over time, they do actually have the luster taken off them, especially on the wear points. For example, the edges of the collar here, and also on the cuffs as well. And the reason for that is several reasons really. One is, whilst we wash our shirts, there is over time a slight build-up, very microscopic, but a slight wear up of our skin and oils that rub or chafe on those particular points. And whilst you regularly wash your shirts, that keeps that yellowing at bay. When you put something into a wardrobe, you actually get a slight chemical reaction over time, and that wear point does release those oils that are entrapped below the surface of the actual wear point, and so it comes to the surface and it gives it a slightly yellow tint. The other thing to bear in mind is that cotton is not white by nature. It is off-white, and therefore over time and wear, that also does create that yellow effect. And so maybe you need to then bleach or treat that yellowing in a different manner, and hence the solution that was used. Now, one of the things I do, and I use this substance quite often myself, I use a bar version. So I use the general solution for the overall shirt, but I have a little bar that I use and I rub specifically on those points. And you can use a scrubbing brush, although personally I use my nail because it's a little bit more direct and more specific to that wear point. And by rubbing my nail and rubbing this solution from the bar into this actual wear point, it lifts it out completely, and that again puts into the solution, works over time as well. Put it in the wash and you'll end up with a great result. So when it comes to wear on a shirt, you are going to get it on those points that are the most contact and chafing. So we've said about the collar, that's pretty much everybody has experienced that, and also on the cuffs as well. And you'll start to see fraying and wear on the points where it can actually break through the surface of the cotton and the collar, and you end up with a lot of fraying and beading effects. And it is that point where you really need to consider, can you get the shirt repaired, or is it time to get rid of it? So what I would say is that when you're looking at a shirt, if you've bought an expensive shirt, generally they have a long tail on them, and the tail is perfectly good to use to replace the collar or the lining of the collar, and it keeps it in keeping with the actual overall wear of the shirt, so it doesn't stand out as an additional new piece of material. It is weathered enough to still be changed on the shirt and still have a great look. And that strip at the bottom is used or employed by the shirt maker to replace that collar, or for example the cuff wear points. So it's something that you really, when you buy a bespoke shirt, you invest in that level of service where that shirt could be repaired. Something else to consider is when you've got these large diving watches, whilst they're aesthetically very nice and they look really good when you're wearing a suit and a shirt, those bevels that are quite chunky and also quite abrasive can wear the shirt cuff out as well over time, especially with frequent wear. So for example in the office environment or something along those lines. So it's just something to bear in mind when you're actually wearing that watch, how much it's going to wear that shirt. So what about that shirt where it's nothing special, in that you've got a shirt you regularly wear? It's great, it's a great shirt, you don't wear it so much, maybe you want to zhuzh it up a little bit, And so one of the skills that I think any person can learn is how to sew. And in this example, you could replace the buttons on the shirt. So here we see a shirt with white buttons, quite a traditional shirt. But by simply changing the buttons for a different colour, you get a completely different vibe on that shirt. And it actually stands out as a little bit of a statement piece when you're not wearing a tie, for example, or wearing a cravat, or just wearing the shirt casually. And with that skill of sewing, it's not just restricted to, for example, shirts. And so if you wanted to change the look of a tweed jacket, for example, you could replace the horn buttons for maybe those leather football buttons, or vice versa, simply by removing the buttons and adding the replacement buttons on. And with that sewing skill you've learnt, it also helps for minor tears and repairs, and a skill that is going to carry you throughout life, and from a sartorial point of view, save your bacon, if you like, on a number of occasions where the hem of a trouser has dropped off because the stitching has pulled through. You can actually tack it up yourself. For example, just before going to a dinner party, you find something's not right, the trousers hem has dropped, you can tack it up again. No one will be any the wiser. You saved the day and you look as spectacular as always. So as I said quite early in this video, this is the last video that I'll be shooting for the British Dapper, and it's with sadness I bid you farewell. And I hope that I've helped you on your sartorial journey by giving you a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of information, and also something that challenges you to consider different options and think about things in a slightly different way. But my parting message is to you, the person that is trying to get back into wearing men's attire in a classical sense, or somebody that has never worn a suit or more classical attire and wished to do so and doesn't know how to do that, and also that person that has already started a journey but want a little bit more inspiration and something to give them a bit more background knowledge or change their direction slightly. I hope these videos have really helped you, and my parting words is, at the end of the day, you wear something that you enjoy wearing, that you truly love. So therefore, if you're comfortable wearing classic men's attire, why would you not wear it? Forget what people say. Many people will say, oh, what are you wearing that for? You know, people don't wear that stuff anymore. That's in a way wrong. And also, I suspect there's an element of jealousy or vulnerability in that person that has made them express it that way. The best tool a person can have in their classic attire, in their sartorial journey, is actually being a gentleman. And that carries you through most things in life. So the reason for the channel closing is down to my health. I have an ongoing health condition that would mean in short term and in the longer term I wouldn't be able to continue to make videos, and so this is really a natural conclusion. And I've spent 5 years of dedication to the channel and to you, my lovely subscribers and Patreons, and I thank you so much for your support, and I thank you for your comments and your recommendations, and it's with a heartfelt thank you and my final farewell. So take care.